Hello, everyone. Welcome to GLOBSEC 2024 here in Prague. I'm Kim Dozier, CNN Global Affairs Analyst.
And I'm Steve Clemons, a contributing editor of National Interest, and I also have the privilege of being the co-chair of the GLOBSEC US Initiative.
And we're here for the 19th edition of the GLOBSEC Forum. It's the first time it's being held outside Bratislava, and for me, the first time in Prague.
I mean, weren't you trying to push Robert Vass to say, take this show on the road?
Indeed, and I'm glad that he
And I've always been waiting for it to be in Prague. But let me ask you right now, and folks, take your seats, get in your seats, do not socialize now, or I will call out your names. But let's take a poll real quick. Who is a first-timer at GLOBSEC? Put your hands up. I want you all to take a look. I want you all to be adopted by everyone. Show me now everyone who's been here at a GLOBSEC session before. Great. So be very nice to the first-timers, okay? Because the most important thing here is this forum is for you. The best thing to do, and anyone who's been here before will tell you the best way to make this valuable to you is meet people you don't know, go to the outside sessions, come into this room. We've got 3 stages we're going to get into because the world is the mess. The deal this year is that we're going to be looking at the global challenges on so many fronts. Russia and its invasion of Ukraine wages on. This is a super election year, over 4 billion people making political choices around the world. And AI, it's changing everything. It's changing everything in your home, but it's also on the battlefield.
And that's why the message of this year's forum is Taming the Storm, looking at the juncture of confrontation between different states, different nation states, the chaos driven by climate change, and all of the upheaval that we're following in Ukraine, Gaza, etc. And the forum strives to generate ideas for solutions. So we're not just here to talk at the problem, we're here to try to find some concrete ways to solve these issues.
You know, I'm a realist and I'm kind of drawn to storms, so this is a very comfortable one for me. But let me tell you again, to rework this and to think about what we're trying to do, I'm going to ask Milan, let's move our folks into seats in the room down here. Okay, thank you. And what I'm going to do is there are 4 key pillars that we think undermine most of the conference here today. The first pillar is redefining the global order. That's one of the issues we're thinking about and trying to get our heads around. Secondly, we're thinking at the wars out there. How do you get from wars and conflicts we see emerging in a fragile world and move to a just peace in these circumstances? How do we chart a smart geotech frontier? And you're going to be hearing a lot about a new geotech center that GLOBSEC is launching. So geotech is very much a part of the new vocabulary of GLOBSEC. And then finally, we're going to look at how leadership, how the new European leadership can set new priorities. So that's another big key theme of our meeting today.
And one of the ways that we have concocted for you to help us answer some of these questions is the Slido app. So if you haven't already, please download the GLOBSEC app and you'll find Slido in there. Now, if you have already downloaded the GLOBSEC app, I would like to...
Pull it out.
I would like to do a dry run with everyone. Pull out your phones and find the Slido app.
You have a Slido app? You don't have a Slido app? Yeah, there you got it. There, ready to go. Okay,
there you go.
Yeah.
And
play along. This is play along time.
We're going to ask you a question, and the question is, what are the biggest storms facing the global community? So you can answer in 1-word answers.
Or 2 words, but put a hyphen in there.
Put a hyphen there. And we will walk you through some other details while you're working that out. But you know, the first time is the hardest time, and once you've done Slido, then you'll be able to interact with all of the large panels going forward.
You know, for me, it's the price of milk, but you know, we'll leave that there. That's 3 words, not legal. But anyway, put your words up there. We're going to have the word cloud in a moment. But let me tell you a little bit about housekeeping. Right now, you are in the Havel stage area. Havel stage is our largest stage. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff going on. But this is a 3-ring circus. GLOBSEC has delivered extraordinary amount of content, and we want to give you a choice. So you don't always have to fly the Havel stage airline. You have other airlines you can choose from. And the Schwarzenberg room is right next door. You go outside this room, the Schwarzenberg stage is next door, and then up the mezzanine level, you go out, you go up through the cafe, up the stairs, and in the back is the Albright stage. And some of you, like me, are going to get the privilege of being on all 3 stages in one day. So I look forward to seeing you on all 3 stages.
And there are also 40 different side events that you may get an invitation to. So those are smaller events in a salon setting where you can talk with some of the leaders who are also on stage and nut out some of those solutions to these problems.
We have Slido results.
Slido results.
Okay, one of the biggest storms is war. I'll just say that's original, but it is good. Ukraine, polarization, populism, inequality, disinformation. So many. Elon Musk, that's up there. That's interesting. That's an original one. I want to find out. Come up to me secretly later and tell, because that's a really avant-garde one. Modern slavery, human trafficking. I don't know what yours would be. My big thing driving storms in the world, I would say, would be inertia. Inertia in our thinking, not original thinking. Inertia is it's the biggest driving force of every decision we make, and it's something we've got to rethink. But what would yours be?
Another way to describe inertia is fear, because the human brain, we're not too far removed from cavemen, and when you're confronted with threats, one of the survival reactions is to freeze.
Right.
And that is related to inertia. We can't freeze, we've got to push forward and come up with some solutions.
So Kim, what's going on the sidelines?
So on the sidelines, we have the small events that you'll get invitations to. We also have social events
well, tell us a little bit more of the small events you're getting. So there is how many?
40.
There are 40 separate sideline events. Some of them, they say you're not in, it's invitation only, but just ignore that. Just show up anywhere and you go in. But I would say go early, act important, and you'll get in. I'm going to get in trouble for this. But there are going to be lots of different topics. And I got to tell you, again, to make GLOBSEC work for you, work the room, work these sessions.
There are also 2 formal social events. There's an invite-only award gala this evening.
Invite only again. But let me tell you, if you're not on that list, last night I went to Sazazu. Is anybody from Prague? Do you know that place? Am I saying it right? It's fantastic. It's huge. It's fantastic food, very kind of Asian cuisine, Prague style, and there's a great nightclub attached to it. So that's where I'm going to be after the invite-only dinner. So Sazazu, okay, in Prague.
And there is also a Saturday evening cocktail event that everyone is invited to.
Everyone invited.
Now that's probably enough from us.
Great, and let's rev up the engines and start GLOBSEC 2024.
Cheers.
Running into a storm can seem counterintuitive. Our instincts often tell us to seek safety and shelter. But running away may only delay the inevitable confrontation with the storm. Whereas confronting it allows us to proactively address issues. By facing the storm, we can take control of the situation. It empowers us to navigate through challenges and forces us to find innovative solutions. This is why we are gathering in Prague today for the 19th edition of the GLOBSEC Forum. If adversity is meant to build resilience, and running into the storm can challenge us to adapt, persevere, and ultimately become stronger, then this is the right platform to do so. To foster peace and prevent the escalation of conflicts, we must safeguard our democracies through resilience, unity, and innovation. Challenges at the geotech frontier, from cyber adaptation to AI, require preparedness and partnerships to navigate the polycrises ahead. As global Europe faces mass protests, migration, and energy transition, it must embrace competitiveness and industrial modernization. The US presidential election could have an impact on the ongoing war on Europe's eastern borders, which has already cost too many lives. We cannot allow this to continue, and we must build a stronger transatlantic bond. We simply must act now. This and much more is a storm gathering strength and slowly turning into a blizzard. The GLOBSEC Forum 2024 is here to find a way to tame the storm.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome President of GLOBSEC, Róbert.
Thank you very much. What an emotional video, very dramatic. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, dear friends, it is my honor and privilege to stand here and to open the 19th edition of the GLOBSEC Forum in Prague. I'm excited to be in Prague, and I'm grateful to this wonderful city and to this country to welcome us in such an extraordinary way. I'm glad that Prague has become a new home for GLOBSEC Forum for years to come. It is definitely a new chapter for us, for GLOBSEC Forum, that strives to be the constructive voice of Central Europe, because this offers us new opportunities and synergies. Because we believe that we can drive the change even from small countries of Central Europe. And our ambition is multiplied with the ambition of Czech Republic to step up in the international stage, because we believe that the size of the country should not be counted on the number of citizens or a land, but rather than on the intellectual power. But our joint ambition to move here, the forum, would not have been possible without the strategic, political, and moral support of President Petr Pavel, who gave his auspices for this forum. Thank you, Mr. President. It would not have been possible without the support of Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Minister Jan Lipavsky himself and the entire government. Thank you, Mr. Minister. I would like to also thank to the preparatory committee that been driving us here in Czech Republic under the leadership of Peter Kolář, but also the decisions by the board of directors of GLOBSEC, led by the former Vice-Chancellor of Austria, Wilhelm Molterer, and the chairman of the US GLOBSEC Foundation, Peter Pudil. These gentlemen have been very crucial in making this possible. Without their unwavering resolution, it would have been impossible. We have also dozens of very important supporters and participants here. Taming the Storm. This is the 19th edition of the GLOBSEC Forum. I still remember our first conference when we established it as university students. It was the year 2005, during the big wave of EU and NATO enlargement. It was a celebration of Europe whole, free and at peace, when the continent reunited. Fundamentally, in 2005, we were convinced that the international community was moving the right direction. Democracy was strong and expanding, and the primacy of international order worldwide was unrivaled. Today, 19 years later, the world looks a little bit different. The storm is just brewing, and we seem to be near, very near, to the eye of the Category 4 storm. Whether it's from Russia's continuous war in Ukraine, a conflict in the Middle East, to populism, anti-democratic tendencies at home, from weaponization of energy and economic interdependence to technological revolution. This Category 4 storm can seriously damage the foundations of the international order that we have been building for so long. The general feeling is that the world is not moving somehow the right direction. But we have not come here to this beautiful city to wane, because the storm is unmistakably out there, but it is in our power to tame it. As someone said, history sometimes needs a push in the right direction. So this is the framing theme that I would like us to consider for the next few days. And I will suggest 3 areas where we can give history a little bit of push. And I'm sure we'll come up with many more during the course of this weekend. First, we must admit that the international order is under attack. As Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk has recently said, that we are living in a pre-war era. I would take it a little bit step further. Whether we want it or not, a war is already fought against us. It's fought in Ukraine, but also it's fought inside of our societies, in information space, by weaponizing energy supplies, sabotaging our communication networks, launching cyber attacks, etc. Kremlin and a scary number of Russians believe that they are at war with the West and NATO. And we would be foolish on our side to pretend that this war will go away only if we ignore it long enough. And as my friend said, if two parties are at war but only one recognizes it, it tends to win. But my second point is, what takes us to sustainable peace? And we know from our history that it is not through appeasement, but through building strength and resilience in our institutions and societies to deter a bigger war. We must organize our economies, societies, and defense to face the current danger. We must invest more. And the third point is that we must recognize that the global competition is increasingly centered around technological innovation. Technological innovation has become the defining parameter of the global order. It defines strength of economies and the strength of militaries. The United States and China have internalized this principle. We in Europe are too slow. We are losing our competitiveness. We are slow in our ability to develop and integrate tech. And it also means we risk becoming irrelevant. That's exactly why GLOBSEC is launching a Geotech Center. We want to accelerate Europe, and we need to move faster to create and shape critical technologies. And we want to help align Europe and the US. Dear friends, so you might ask, this is a huge challenge, what we need to do. So who is supposed to do all of this? First, when I look at this room, I see an extraordinary group of decision makers, influencers, journalists, future leaders over the course of these 3 days. We all can contribute to mobilizing our societies and to protect the international order. Second, I do think that our region, Central Eastern Europe, is in a very unique historical position now to drive transformative initiatives for the entire continent. Following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, the region has attracted far more attention and acquired additional credibility. As in his speech at the GLOBSEC Forum last year, President Macron famously said that Western Europe has mistakenly ignored the voices of the region. If Central Eastern Europe opinions have been listened to, Europe would be stronger now and better prepared to respond to security challenges it is facing. Finally, I wanted to highlight an important group of powerful agents of positive change. These are the young leaders. We are gathering a lot of young leaders during the course of these 3 days, and they have meetings with political leaders. And I'm happy also to share that this year GLOBSEC launched the Women Leaders Council, a community of accomplished women leaders who across the Atlantic who are at the forefront of their respective fields. The council is not simply a diversity exercise. It is a commitment by GLOBSEC that we will champion perspectives, ideas, and opinions that often get lost. And you will hear more from these women leaders over the course of the forum. I want to finish my opening remarks with the word of Madeleine Albright. She once said, "I'm not a fatalist because I think people can make a difference. I'm just an optimist who worries a lot." So maybe my very gloomy introduction was gloomy, but like Secretary Albright, I believe we can make a difference. I'm optimistic about our future because there are more than 2,000 of us in Prague. And over the next 3 days, we'll be working on finding solutions to the problems that worry all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome to Prague and have a wonderful 3 days. Thank you very much.
And now we would like to welcome the President of the Czech Republic, Petr Pavel.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, and good morning to all of you. It is a great pleasure for me to address you today at the GLOBSEC Forum. For 2 decades, this forum has been building an excellent reputation as the leading Central European platform for discussing global security issues. This year, for the first time, we are honored to welcome GLOBSEC Forum in Prague. Let me briefly touch on where we stand in evolving global security landscape and where I believe our main goals should be. Clearly, I can't but start with Ukraine, which continues to stand strong against Russia's cynical aggression. We are facing a long conflict with an uncertain outcome. Time can, however, work in Ukraine's and in our favor, but only if we pull ourselves together and learn the right lessons from the past 2.5 years. At this point, we are dealing with Russia that still believes it has no reason to change its course of action. To achieve a just and lasting peace, we must continue to provide sufficient and predictable support to Ukraine. Russia must grow to an understanding that persisting in this misguided war will no longer be in their interest. The Ukrainians are more than doing their part to drive that message home. They pay the highest price, their lives. Whatever we do to support them will never bear the same price tag. As Europeans and the transatlantic community, we must persist in our support. It is not only the right thing to do, but it is also in our own interest. We need to maintain our political resolve and develop the material capacities to provide Ukraine with the necessary resources. There is still room to do more effective, to be more effective in enforcing our sanctions and undermine the ability of Russian industry to support the war. It is essential to make it less appealing for the third countries to support the aggressor than to comply with our own sanction regimes. At the same time, Europe as a continent is facing structural economic challenges. Our low self-sufficiency in critical raw materials, medicines, or semiconductors is hampering our economic development. Energy security and our past dependency on unpredictable partners showed that short-term economic gains can create long-term headaches. Although we still remain pioneers in many areas, we are falling behind the US, some Asian countries, and India in a number of technological developments and in exploitation of emerging technologies. It is time for us to realize that our technological competence and advancement will strongly shape our geopolitical relevance and security of our citizens. Therefore, I appreciate the foundation of the Prague Geotech Summit, a platform which brings together political leaders and technological pioneers to discuss our common responsibility to safeguard our democracies and prosperity. There is no doubt we need more cooperation, not just between governments and businesses, but also between the EU and the US, but I would rather say between Europe and the US and the rest of democratic countries around the world. We are good at talking, but not so much in doing. It is time to start breaking down the barriers for deepening our cooperation in science, research and development, and in emergent technologies such as quantum computing, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and modern defense technologies. As we move forward, it is clear that the international landscape has become increasingly challenging. It is only right that the bedrock of our security, the North Atlantic Alliance, is returning to its primary mission, to collective defense. NATO will focus on developing capabilities needed to prevail in a potential peer conflict. We need to restore the capacities of European defense industries. We must prepare to face sabotage and well-orchestrated cyber attacks. Our societies also need to become more resilient against disinformation campaigns that seek to exploit divisions and weaken our social cohesion. We do indeed live in an increasingly conflicting world. Yet I still firmly believe that an international order based on rules and cooperation benefits not just the West, but all members of the international community. The rules and institutions born out of the Second World War may require reforms. Yet fragmentation and the sliding into bloc mentality weaken us all. Open conflict is a disastrous path for everyone. This is true for Russia, which is certainly weaker and more fragile today than it was before 2022. Importantly, it also applies to China, which has a vested interest in its economic position and in fulfilling an aspiration to become a respected and a responsible global leader. Of all countries, China is in the strongest position to help end Russia's aggression in Ukraine. This is why our efforts to strengthen our own resilience will have to go hand in hand with genuine engagement with our adversaries. A world where conflict becomes the norm is far from the inevitable. Yet it is in our collective power to avoid such scenario. All the best to GLOBSEC Forum 2024, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, President Pavel. And now I would like to welcome Wilhelm Molterer. He is the GLOBSEC chairman, and he will be introducing the President of the EU, Ursula von der Leyen. Mr. Molterer.
Welcome. There is just one option to defend democracy and freedom, just one option to defend our territory and security of our people, just one option to compete successfully on the global level, and just one option to protect nature and environment. And this is to keep the European Union united and to make the European Union stronger. That's the only single option. And it's a great honor for GLOBSEC that we can say welcome President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. She is the strong lady that's leading the European Union exactly in this direction, to keep it united and make it stronger. Welcome, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you for your kind words. Presidents, Prime Ministers, Ministers, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a big privilege for me to be here in Prague today. I'd say at Central Europe's most renowned security conference. This is my first public address since I was elected to lead the European Commission for a second mandate. And I think there's no better place than being here and give the first speech after this election. The new reality is that Central Europe is not only geographically at the heart of Europe, but it is also politically and strategically central to the future of the European Union. Last year, the biggest investors in this region were not German companies or French companies, but Czech companies. Poland is one of Europe's most dynamic economies. Resilience of most Central European countries in the face of Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine was and is remarkable. So when we talk about competitiveness, I think Europe's West has a lot to learn from Europe's East. And in the last 3 years, Europe has discovered another side of this region's impressive strength. Since Russian tanks rolled into Ukraine, you have become the beating heart of European solidarity. And this is still the case today, after 2.5 years of Russian aggression and brutality. Almost on the very same day when Prague will celebrate 35 years of the Velvet Revolution, the world will mark 1,000 days of Russia's full-scale invasion. And there's nothing velvet about Putin's war. So many innocent people killed. So many cities have been razed to the ground. So many families have been torn apart. And one day, we will know how many young men and women born in 1989 were killed in 2024. But there's something else we already know. Peace cannot be taken for granted. You warned already years ago about Putin's intentions. Well, we should have listened better to Central and Eastern Europe. And ladies and gentlemen, today some politicians inside our union and even in this part of Europe are muddying the waters of our conversation about Ukraine. They blame the war not on the invader, but on the invaded. Not on Putin's lust for power, but on Ukraine's thirst for freedom. So I want to ask them, would you ever blame Hungarians for the Soviet invasion of 1956? Would you ever blame Czechs for the Soviet repression of 1968? And the answer to this question is very clear. The Kremlin's behavior was illegal and atrocious back then, and the Kremlin's behavior is illegal and atrocious today. We Europeans have many different histories. We speak many different languages. But in no language, peace is synonymous with surrender. In no language, sovereignty is synonymous with occupation. So those who argue to stop support for Ukraine do not argue for peace. They argue for appeasement and subjugation of Ukraine. So today I would like to address all those who, after 1,000 days of death and destruction, are asking sincerely, isn't it time for talks? It is first and foremost up to our Ukrainian friends to answer this question. We and them want the war to stop as soon as possible. But while many outside Europe are preoccupied only with the end of fighting, my position is that peace is not simply the absence of war. Peace is a settlement that makes war impossible and unnecessary. And therefore, we must put Ukraine in the condition of negotiating such peace, and this is why the integration of Ukraine in our European Union is for us at the heart of every peace effort. If we want true peace, we must fundamentally rethink the foundation of Europe's security architecture. Russia's invasion has been an eye-opener for Europe. What lies in ruins are not only Ukrainian cities, but also many of our basic security assumptions. For decades, many said that economic interdependence was the ultimate source of security. And you know all that Europe was buying Russian gas, and this was supposed to be the guarantee that Moscow would never start a new war on the old continent. This was an illusion. Putin has traded his country's prosperity for his own imperial ambitions. And our own dependency on Russia has become an asset in Putin's hands. What was believed to be a source of security was, in fact, a source of vulnerability. And as Russia started to move its troops towards the border of Ukraine, it also turned off the gas tap to blackmail Europe. We all remember the shock and the horror when the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began, but also the fear of blackouts in Europe. These fears have never materialized. Why that? Europe got the support of all our partners immediately. The United States, for example, immediately stepped up the LNG deliveries. Norway increased the pipeline gas deliveries. But we also helped ourselves. We built new infrastructure. We bought energy together to have a strong market power. We brought prices down and under control. They are still too high, but we brought them down quite a bit. But most importantly, we have worked on a structural response to this crisis. We invested massively in renewable energy, and we are investing in the fuels of the future, like, for example, clean hydrogen. And the result speaks for itself. In the first half of this year, 50% of all our electricity generation came from renewables. Wind and solar generated more electricity than all fossil fuels combined. Putin's attempt to blackmail our union has not only utterly failed, actually, he triggered the boost of European homegrown renewable energy that makes us independent. And we've learned our lesson. When we speak about our energy, we have to produce our own energy, more renewables, more nuclear, more efficiency. When we speak about our technologies, semiconductors, and artificial intelligence, we have to design our own European solutions. So for me, innovation and competitiveness are not only an essential part of our future prosperity, but they are also an essential and crucial part of our long-term security. And there's also a second lesson we have learned. Europe has overcome its long-standing unwillingness to spend enough on its own defense. And I'm here coming to the point of our transatlantic cooperation. I cannot overemphasize the importance of the US support for Ukraine since the start of this war. Once again, America has stood up for the freedom of all Europeans. And I feel deep gratitude for this, but also a deep responsibility. Protecting Europe is first and foremost Europe's duty. And while NATO must remain the center of our collective defense, we need a much stronger European pillar. We Europeans need to have the means to defend and protect ourselves, and to deter any possible adversaries. So since the start of the war, we have already made unprecedented progress. Member states have stepped up their defense spending from just over 200 billion before the war to almost 300 billion this year. And our defense industry has also stepped up to the new reality. We have reopened production lines, we have placed new orders, we are cutting red tape to produce more and more quickly. But this is not enough. The reality is that even if Europeans take the current security threats seriously, it will take time and massive investment to restructure our defense industries. Our aim must be to build continent-size defense output. And Central Europe is very well positioned to be one of the drivers and one of the great beneficiaries of this new push for the European defense sector. And here, ladies and gentlemen, the challenge is for small countries and small companies to learn to think big, really big. We must have in mind a systemic overhaul of Europe's defense. And this is why I will appoint a full-fledged defense commissioner in the next commission. This is Europe's strategic responsibility. So to conclude, ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of this decade, many illusions have been shattered in Europe. The illusion that peace was achieved once and for all. The illusion that prosperity might matter more to Putin than his delusional dreams of empire. The illusion that Europe was doing enough on security, be it economically or militarily. Today, we cannot afford any more illusions. The second half of this decade will be high risk. The war against Ukraine and the conflict in the Middle East have put geopolitics in flux. Tensions are also running high in the Far East. We are facing climate change with, for example, desertification of whole regions. We Europeans must be on guard. We must refocus our attention on the security dimension of everything we do. We must think about our union as intrinsically a security project. And Central Europe has a crucial role to play. And this is why I'm so happy to be here at GLOBSEC today, because you must be at the heart of European security. You must be at the heart of our union's future. I count on you. Thank you very much, and long live Europe.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give another massive round of applause for President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. Let me just say one thing about Madam President. Years ago, when she was Minister of Defense, I had the privilege of interviewing her here at GLOBSEC, well, it was in Bratislava, and the forward-looking nature and the clarity of her words then have not diminished at all. I just want to say thank you again. Great to see you. Thank you so much. Okay, let me ask everyone to, excuse me, Madam President. Let me ask everyone to stay in your seats. We're going to move into the next fantastic session, chaired by my very good friend and the iconic, need no introduction, General John Allen, who's been such a foundation for GLOBSEC, will be joining us. We're going to have two presidents and a former president with us on stage, including President Pavel here. Peter, it's great to see you. So what we're going to do is just wait for a moment. We've got a little bit of a treat for you, and we'll move to that next session.